I'm Tammy Fellers.
And I'm Renee Smith. We are both math consultants at ESDAC in Hutchinson, Kansas.
And today we're going to talk about flip-flop facts for integers.
So this particular set of cards has three separate decks. We have an addition deck, which can also then lead to subtraction of integers. We have a separate subtraction deck and then a multiplication and division deck. So we're going to demonstrate how we might use these with kids. So Tammy's going to be the student first, and I'm going to cover up the card that has the sum on this particular card, and she's going to solve the problem for me.
And the sum on these cards is located inside of a box or square. So she's showing me -3 plus -8. Highly recommend you have tools out for your students, number lines, counters, whatever may be appropriate. We've got 2 color counters out, and we're also going to use the number line. But on this one, it's -3. So I have 3 red counters, and plus -8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have -3 plus -8. When I combine those 2 groups, I have -11.
And she does. And since I saw her strategy, I wouldn't have to ask her particularly how she solved that. So
If I had right away said -11, Renee would then in turn ask me, what strategy did you use?
okay.
So Renee, I have a question for you.
All right.
This time I'm not going to cover up the number inside the square, so I'm going to leave the sum showing, and I've covered up one of the other numbers. And so she now has a 2.
So I know that if I were writing an equation, it would be 2 plus some number equaled -6. And so as a student, I might start on the number line at 2, knowing that I have to move clear down the number line to the left to the -6. I would cover 8 spaces in that move in the negative direction, so my answer would be -8.
And she would be correct. And because she would be doing that on her number line in front of me, I again wouldn't need to ask the strategy.
All right, so then we're going to look at the subtraction card, and as you can see, our subtraction card's a little different. It does have the difference of the equation in a square, like the other cards all do, but there is also a number that is underlined because we know that in subtraction order does matter, so that number is actually the beginning number in the equation or the minuend. So when I cover up the square this time for Tammy, I'm covering up the difference so she knows she's got both numbers, the minuend and the subtrahend both.
And so whether I write that equation or write it in my head, I have -6 minus 6. So if I model that with counters, I'm going to put 6 red out to represent -6. And now it tells me I need to take away 6 positive. There are no positives out there, so I know that I can put 0 pairs out, which means putting a positive and a negative out. And I'm going to do that 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've done that 6 times now. And so now I still have -6 plus 0. So I know I haven't changed the value, but now the question said -6 take away
+6.
+6. So I'm going to take those +6 away, and I am left with, I recount those, I'm left with -12.
And yay, you did it.
Renee uncovers the answer, and again, she doesn't need to ask me my strategy. She has seen what I have done for her.
If at any point your student didn't, or students were working together and a student didn't visibly show how they were working, then the other student would question.
So then I'm going to show her a card from multiplication and division, and we do not recommend these decks be intermixed. I in a small group setting would have students working on one deck at a time.
Absolutely.
But we just want to show you a training video here of all 3. So now we're doing multiplication and division, and in this case I'm doing multiplication. I've covered the product.
So I could see that the numbers are 5 and -3, and I'm multiplying, so I'm going to look for 5 groups of -3. So there's 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups. Thanks for having those out there for me already, Tammy. And 5 groups, and since they're all negative, obviously, I would just have to total them up to find out that the answer would be -15. This card, just like the addition cards and the subtraction, we can do them in a variety of ways. And on our task card that accompanies these different sets, we give you those extensions. One of the extensions here would be then to cover up a number other than the product, which would then either have children using a variety of strategies here as well, one of which would be division. So,
Also included on that task sheet are student accountability possibilities. We know that during small group settings, the teacher is not always at each of the stations. So when it's a station without a teacher, what might be some pieces of accountability that you can ask for your student, and strategies that don't impede the learning. We don't want the accountability to take over the learning time. We want that to just be a product of.
so I think that all of these obviously already have the answers on them, so that doesn't have to be supplied on the task sheet. So I think that's pretty much covers what we needed to tell you today, and we thank you for joining us.